Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brand new episode of Christine Means Business. And if you are watching, then you will see that I'm not on my own, but I have the fabulous Nick Wolny here with me as a guest for today's episode. And you know that I cannot wait to take these opportunities to shamelessly pick my genius friends' brains. So let me tell you a little bit about Nick. So he is a writer and he's a media and messaging strategist for entrepreneurs. Now that alone is already, my eyes have like these gold emoji stars in them. He's given over 40 live TV interviews, which I love to watch actually, by the way, commenting on marketing and technology, writing contributed content for Entrepreneur, Business Insider, and Social Media Examiner, and has been featured with Reader's Digest, Men's Health, Vice, Houston Chronicle, and USA Today. So this is a big deal. I'm like, whoa. Lead Pages describes him as a creative thinker whose marketing strategy converts big. And the Houston Business Journal declared him a top LGBTQ-owned business personality. How fantastic is this? Now, Nick, welcome so much here, and I'm so happy to be talking to you today. So, as you know, I'm mainly working with coaches who have decided either to start a business online or who are stuck. And I find one of the main questions that comes is, how do people find me? How do I get clients? Sometimes they have an inkling that writing could be a part of it. But in the end, I find if you're a good writer, in the end, the main referral source that you could have is Google. And Google loves written content in the end. So what was your journey to get to where you are, kind of? Because you didn't start that way. And then what can you help us do? Because I feel we need kind of a starting point as to this writing thing, it seems so vast. Some see Shakespeare in their head, others see their favorite author or Brené Brown, and it's just like, okay, writing is a lot of things, but how can we use it for entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be reconnected with you. You know, it's been almost 2 years since we've seen each other face to face, right?
Yeah.
In San Diego. So here's a little bit about my background. So before I was doing what I was doing right now, the first time that I went into business for myself, I had, and that was actually when we met, I had a very niche business offering. I was doing digital marketing consultation for multi-location fitness studios, yoga studios, essentially mom and pop owned businesses that had grown to multiple locations. It was similar to what I had been doing previously as a career, kind of doing regional management and COO work for a multi-location operation that was similar to that. And something that we discovered in that process is, we had been doing almost no digital marketing strategy. And one day the owner of the studio, she came to me and she said, I know that you're thinking about marketing. Hey, we have an email list of 60,000 people. Should we do something with it?
No, just leave it. I mean, what?
And so I think steam was coming out of my ears, or maybe I went to the bathroom to throw up when I heard that or something like that. But if you think about it, so anyone who's signing a waiver, if you've ever signed a waiver before you go and take an exercise class or something like that, usually in your contact information, you're putting down your email address. And then that was just how that was getting added. It was just a very different, it was this offline use of email list, right? Which is very, very different from what we're trying to do online. And so by putting really basic sequences and, education in place and automating that for people, we were able to win back a lot of business. We had one automation in place to where if people, had canceled their membership after 6 months, we offered them a great deal to come back in and try us and see what had changed. And then also for people that were kind of getting to know us and they're in their first month with us, we would do two things. One is that we would show off some past media accolades, best in the city for this, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And two is that, particularly for yoga, this business was a yoga business. A lot of people are scared of yoga. They're like, I can't tie myself into a pretzel. All I see on Instagram are people doing crazy stuff, things. I don't think I can touch my toes. So just giving them some education around the basics, like here's how to do some of the basic poses that you're going to see in every class. Hey, check out this free video. Or here's a little bit more about the 3 different types of classes we offer, and the difference between each, so you might have taken one, but you may discover that you actually like one of the other ones way better. So, just to put in some of that basic content to educate people was making a tremendous difference. And even if people didn't end up becoming members, they just knew so much more about who we are and what we did.
Yeah.
And they were able to communicate it effectively to their friends as well. So the nice thing about that too is that we wrote that content once, we created that content once, and then we actually never touched it again. And
Which is my favorite thing.
It just worked on autopilot. Yeah. So I think that's, in terms of what we're talking about content today. We're talking about marketing. I think it's important for people to distinguish between these 2 buckets of content in that you've got search-based content and you've got social-based content.
Yes.
So many people are they're worried about I'm getting ready to be a full-time coach. I've got to make a new Instagram right now.
I know.
This is something like that. But it's important to distinguish between the 2, because if you've got the disadvantage to feed-based content, something like a Facebook where you've got a feed or an Instagram feed or something like that, is that you've just got to keep depositing into it over and over again. And there's this whole other world. It's maybe a little less sexy. The filters are not as cool, and all the buttons and widgets. But there's another world, and that's search-based content, which is content that you create once. You set it up so that you can be discoverable from different people in the future for weeks and months to come.
Agreed.
And you just don't have to mess with it again, right?
I agree. And I feel very often as coaches, we implement all the bells and whistles, and then we expect a kaboom to happen and have this huge stream of clients. And the thing is, that's never going to happen. Okay, the better your foundations are, the more you will be able to convert. But in the end, it is a long-term game and you need people to find you. That's why I love searchable content, because my biggest word of mouth is Google in the end, and it's free. So I love this stuff because it's, as you say, you set it, you forget it, it works for you for years. With Sleep Like a Boss, I think the post Parasites and Sleep is the most popular post we have. And I bet I have over 80% of my clients came through that one post. Wow. So it's fantastic. I could never have a Facebook ad ever making such a return on investment, because the investment was just my time for once.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's important for people to identify, to even go into that media piece a little bit. I find that having that media element in the picture, if nothing else, it's not to tell people, look how great I am. It's just to remove skepticism faster, so that you can help people faster. Agreed. Right? So, people don't have to be reading your work or listening to your audio or watching your videos through these rose-colored glasses of skepticism about does this actually work? Things like that. Mm-hmm. By injecting media early on in the picture, media is instant credibility, right? Agreed. It helps to just rapidly remove that skepticism for a lot of people that are in your audience. So I know we're both media enthusiasts in terms of using it in our business, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why is it just allows you to get real and for your audience to kind of lean in and listen to what you have to say and to be helped. Yeah.
Yes. And I think in health and wellness, it can be tricky to get testimonials. Not everyone wants the whole world to know that they worked on a particular problem. If you have irritable bowel cyst syndrome, not everyone wants to know that you shit your pants on a regular basis, right? Yeah. So it can be tricky to get a testimonial. And that's why I find media is speaking for you. It's immediate street cred, it gives you clout. And it's just, you don't have to wait a gazillion years to get those testimonials in. So I just think it accelerates this credibility factor so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, media is starting to shift. Even in the past several years, there's a statistic floating around that for 2019 there were about 7,800 media professionals who were laid off. So media is changing. Outlets are looking for ways to create more content and have it be more cost effective, right? Because it's just like that business model in a nutshell is usually along the lines of more content, more page views, the more time, the more popular a post is, the more ads get shown, the more revenue, blah, 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 blah. That's a publisher's business model in a nutshell. So there's an incentive for publishers to be able to quickly produce more content at a certain level of quality. And that's, more and more of these publishers are exploring contributed content, having their content not be written by an employee, but having their content be written by, a thought leader or an industry expert, or really beginning to delve into the world of opinion editorials, right? Op-eds, so I'll write for Entrepreneur a fair amount. And my piece is an Entrepreneur. It even says right under the byline, the opinions expressed by the Entrepreneur contributors are their own opinions. But at the same time, so it kind of does two things there. One, it's a really credible placement because I wrote the article. That has a different gravity to it than being one of 7 experts cited, in an article that has a bunch of quotes, right?
Agreed. It's a different level, I hate to say.
Right. Well, so you have a little bit more control. It's a couple things. It's more coverage. Usually you're a little bit more in control of your message. I know that people before, they've done interviews to get those quote placements, and then what they said was spun out of context a little bit.
I know.
Right. So it's actually where you may have experienced also where you're actually losing control of your message a little bit. So it gives you more control of your message, and then what's nice is you have the obvious endorsement of the platform, because it's you're an extension of that platform's voice.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful placement. One reason that I focus on helping people write more and to write faster is that for many of these contributed article opportunities, your pitch or your proposal needs to include a draft of your article already done, right? So it's enough ripping the Band-Aid off just to put together a pitch that makes sense and to figure out who to send it to, all this stuff, and have a good idea. Gosh, and now you're going to ask me to write an entire article too. For a lot of people, for many of us, we're rusty on writing. We haven't written deeply since college, perhaps.
Yes.
Right? You haven't had to write a paper in years and years. So the notion of writing an article and then having it potentially not get accepted, that sounds exhausting.
Plus, I think if I'm correct, some of those outlets will say, yes, you can contribute, but you have to contribute. If we do accept you, you will have to contribute a certain amount or a certain amount of pieces in a regular kind of time frame, which can also, if you take 5 gazillion years to write a piece, that can just seem like it's going to take away your life, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. They want contributors who will be throwing stuff out on a regular basis. The one I know off the top of my head that has a hard specific number is Inc Magazine. If you take a contributor platform with them, it's 52 pieces a year. It's a piece every week, right? Yeah. Actually don't know at the time of this interview if it's paid or not, but if it is paid, it's certainly not a whole lot, right?
No,
you won't
not, be able to
yeah, it's no one's full-time job. Yeah, exactly. People are doing that in addition. It's good coverage, absolutely. But what will behoove you is to learn how to get out of your own way with writing. With writing faster, and this apply even if you're not someone who wants to write emails. Maybe you want to mostly make videos, or you want to mostly do a podcast, or some other outlet. Being able to write rapidly, it lends itself to more email marketing. It lends itself to more, if you're going to outline any of your content, you're probably going to, make a plan of what you're going to do in a video before you shoot the video, right? So all of this different stuff, just the ability to to warm those muscles back up, those writing muscles. It's actually, it's a big piece of the puzzle for a lot of people who want to create content online.
I agree. And it happens that you teach this stuff, which I just find amazing. So I was lucky enough to snatch one of your very early launches that you did. And so I got everything at a steal because I'm cunning like that. But
you did.
I loved it so much. I have to say, I haven't watched everything, but just the first module alone, I was like, oh, there's new resources. It all makes so much sense. I know, like, even just after our first module, I felt confident enough to actually go and write an article fairly quickly. So
Awesome.
There's a couple of steps in there, but let's say we have someone listening now and they're like, this makes sense. I have a platform that I know I want to guest write for, or I don't feel comfortable with video, although I always say video is important. But let's say we have someone who's just, slowly getting into the waters and they just feel more comfortable not on camera, which is totally fine for me. If you blog, that's cool too. But let's say they are like, okay, I want to do this, but I just don't know how. What are some things that they can do? Like you don't reveal your whole bag of tricks because people have to get that. But what is like one piece where your audience has generally gone, aha, now I get it? Or one piece where you'd say, okay, if you actually implement this is the most important thing that I would recommend you not skip.
Yep, totally. I'll give two. Okay, so I'll give two. So number one is the actual creation of written content. And what people mostly get stuck with is around what to write about, where to write about it, and then actually writing it. Right. So, in terms of what to write about, it's always good to be figuring out what topics are being presented already on the internet that relate to your expertise in some way. And that is counterintuitive. Often you feel like you need to talk about something that no one else has ever talked about before.
Exactly.
But at this point in in this day and age of the internet, that doesn't really exist anymore. There's a term, it was coined in like 2015, 2016, a while ago, and it's called peak content. And it refers to the fact that pretty much for the most part, everything that you could possibly write about has already been written and already exists on the internet. Right.
A little bit. It's like a huge myth buster and a little bit disillusionary in a way, but yes.
Yeah. So I think we often, especially when we're beginning in business, we often feel like, okay, I got to find my niche, or I've got to, marketing professionals, they'll call it blue ocean and red ocean. Red ocean is full of sharks. There's a lot of competition. Blue ocean, there's lots of opportunity. No one's there yet. But the thing is that red ocean, that more popular place, that's where the fish are. That's where people are hanging out. People are looking for parasites in sleep. People are looking for, tips to better fall asleep at night when it's day 3,000 of quarantine.
Yes.
Things like that. So, it's about riding what people are searching for anyway. And providing a new spin on it, or just injecting that same topic with your unique personality and your unique outlook or approach. That is enough differentiation, to potentially be new content, right? But I think it's important to keep, for anyone listening, I think it's important to keep a bank of, just how are your topics being presented on the internet? Who's writing about your expertise and how are they writing about it? There's a great tool called BuzzSumo that I teach in the course, actually, in the mini course. And it's buzzsumo.com, and you can type in any term and it will show you the most popular content on the internet for that term. Another one I like, especially now, because economically the whole world is almost like flipped upside down with this, with all this stuff with COVID. I do a Google search on a topic, and then underneath the Google search bar, there's a little tools section, and you can click on tools and you can actually filter the results by publication date. And so I'll filter results for the last month.
Yes. And it's fascinating. It's
So then you can
fascinating.
see, rather than seeing the most popular stuff ever, like if you were going to do paleo diet, for example, that's been around for a while, and the top results probably have years and years of page views racked up, right?
Yes.
But you want to see who's writing about paleo diet as it relates to when you're cooking for the whole family and it's month 3 or 4 or 5 of quarantine, right? So you've got to filter that. So using like a Google search or something like that, any search provider, and then filtering for what is recent, that's going to help you get a feel for how people are talking about your expertise now. And then for where to talk about your content, then it's good to see what other people in your industry, where they are potentially writing for. And it's also good to hop onto general places like Reddit or online forums where people are having conversations about what to check out. Maybe there are some free Facebook groups that are about your topic, and you can see just what resources people are going to in order to get the information they need. And then that's where you need to be.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
love this so much because it's just like, yes, you do need to do your research, but I find it vastly exciting because there's just so much out there that we don't know because you don't know everything. It's just, you have your little bubble, but doesn't mean that there's a gazillion other little bubbles out there. So it's your job to figure out, okay, what is my crowd actually digging? Which podcasts are they listening to? What kind of blogs are they reading? Are they more entrepreneur people, or are they maybe more, I don't know, inspired coach, which is a completely different voice,
Yep.
but what is similar maybe to that? What are they related to? Who they link to? We look at their contributors. Where else did they contribute? So it's this little treasure hunt, and just gathering every bit of information is going to leave you with so many places that you can pitch to. It's just fab. Amazing. So now we know, we have an idea what we want to do. We kind of have an idea where we want to pitch. And now it's the beast.
Yeah.
How do you get that butt into that seat to actually write?
Yeah. Well, I think most people struggle with writing nowadays because they want it to be at a certain level from the very beginning, especially if you're an expert, especially if you're a professional, you have, perhaps already had a career. You don't want to feel like a beginner. It's actually, as we get older and older, it feels harder and harder to, be a beginner, right? We become more and more averse to doing that. And so I teach it, I like to call it the dirty draft. So it's your first draft. And this is about getting words on paper. And it is really, really dirty. Like, you're going to have sentences that don't make sense. I encourage people to potentially even free write their first draft.
Yeah.
There are some tools online that help you with free writing, because for many people, you may discover that you want to start writing more regularly, and you go to open up, Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever, and even to write freely. Like, it's difficult to even, like, literally just write your stream of consciousness. And there are people that cannot even do that at first, right? So you got to kind of reawaken those muscles. There's if you like kind of a masochistic approach, there's an online tool that I'll go to sometimes when I need to really shake it up. It's called the Most Dangerous Writing App. That's the name of the app.
Exciting. Very inviting.
Yes. So you Google it. It was acquired. I don't remember the name of the software company off the top of my head, but if you Google Most Dangerous Writing App, you'll find it. And so it's a web page, and if you want it to give you a prompt, it will give you a prompt, and then you choose a time window, and then you go in and you free write. But if at any time you stop for more than 5 seconds,
oh no,
everything you've written gets deleted.
No.
And so right, so that sounds horrifying. But we're not looking to, like, we're trying to speed things up, right? Like, we're just trying to get you to write quicker. And you can do 1 minute to start. You can do 2 minutes to start, right? It has it set to, I think, 5 minutes is the default, which feels like an eternity if you've done it. But when you have that, like, ticking time bomb feeling, you will write words that make absolutely no sense. You will not even write sentences anymore.
Yes.
But then something will start to happen in your brain.
Yes.
You'll begin to get into that flow state where you just get used to writing words. And then the other thing that happens is, once you've got the words on paper, it's way easier to go back and say, okay, like this part doesn't make sense, but this nugget is really good. I think I should actually expand that there. It's much easier to, in my opinion, it's much easier to copy edit than it is to copy write, right? You can look at a bunch of stuff on a page and say, okay, you know what? Like actually that's a really good little nugget. That's a really good little nugget. Let's expand on that. And so in terms of teaching that, so I teach the dirty draft, like doing a rough draft, just as quick as you can, as dirty as you can. Then I teach a second draft, which is where you're going through, you're doing some major surgery in that draft. You're getting it to where it kind of makes sense. You're not obsessing over what's the right word to use. Like you're just getting it to the point where it's logical. And then finally I teach a third draft where you're going to go, maybe you sleep on it and then you come back to it. And a third draft is where you can kind of go through and say, okay, I want this to sound a little bit more like me, or, oh, you know what? I just thought of a good additional example that I can put in this. And then some people do more than 3 drafts, but I find that if you take that, like that's 3 very different mindsets for the same article, right? Like the dirty draft is like, it's probably the sloppiest thing you're going to do in your business in a very long time. And then the second draft, kind of that surgery draft, is where you're just kind of making sense of things, but you've got a little bit more, you're a little more invested at this point, right? It's a little bit easier. And then finally to clean it up and get it ready to present, that can be like a separate session.
I love this so much. And it's totally doable. And it's fun because the free writing thing, I do that with my clients when I ask them to journal what is keeping them back, because it goes into, and when I wrote my book years ago, and I never talk about my book because I don't like it, but we did this when I had writer's block, and it was just a task I had to do every day, and I had to write for 15 minutes. And I remember writing sentences like, I don't know what the fuck to write about. This is really boring. I don't know what to say, But then it's true that your brain starts to go new ways that have been there. It's just that your brain takes the same pathways. It's lazy. So when you make it will finally open up those cobwebs and go digging into all that knowledge you've stored somewhere. So it's a fantastic strategy. I love it so much. It's brilliant.
Awesome.
So would you say that if someone reaches out to media, obviously read the guidelines, right? It's the first thing you should do. Do they want a pitch? Do they want an article? But do you think if there's nothing there, it impresses more if you go with a piece?
It's a good question. On some guidelines, if they don't want a piece, they will explicitly say that. Like, please do not send manuscripts, or please do not send like completed articles. Please send a pitch first. It depends on the outlet. The Guardian, for example, they do not accept unsolicited manuscripts. And some, in book culture, like sometimes people will literally spit their manuscript out at every single email address they can find in the hopes that they can get some coverage. But I do think it presents something of interest, saying, pairing a pitch with a draft to say like, hey, I think this would be a great piece. I've actually written a draft of it for consideration, because again, a lot of media, especially now when teams are leaner than ever and they're responsible for more content than ever, they are looking for how to make their job easier. Right?
Yes, agreed.
And how to have more of an end results. I remember working with an editor over at Well and Good, and she's like, this was for a client back when I had an agency job, and she said, hey, we can put this person's quote in, but I need it in the next 45 minutes.
Yes.
Because I have to publish 6 pieces today. She was writing all 6 pieces, and she had to get all 6 pieces out. So she's like, I'd love to include your person, but I literally have to have it in 45 minutes because I got to go on to the next piece after that. So just getting a sense of like, what these media professionals are going through, a great approach is to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. And I think one way to do that is to write the article for them.
I agree.
Then at least if they have a protocol that only a journalist will be writing for them, then gosh, the journalist has a whole bunch of stuff to work with already, right? And they can just ask you for follow-up and things like that.
I agree.
But I just think that is it's more and more the direction that many of these outlets are going. And, it's just important to, make it as easy as possible for them to say yes.
Yeah. And something you might even be able to say is, here's a draft. I'll be able to deliver a complete version within 24 hours as soon as you let me know, because I find that very often when I work with PR agencies, they will ask, how quickly can you deliver? And it's just letting them know, like, if you give me the go ahead, I can do this within 24 hours or even within 12 hours, so it's really adding those little bits of information, showing how ready you are, that you are on standby for them, is really going to go a long way.
It was actually, I'm glad you brought that up. A quick story about that. My first piece for Entrepreneur, I had pitched them a boatload of times. And so the first piece that I got a response from the editor on was, there was a day last year, I believe, when maybe you remember, it's like Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp were just down for the day.
I do remember.
Remember that? Because people were freaking out.
Yes.
So anyway, so it was down for the day. And so that was my pitch. My pitch was about why email marketing is still really freaking valuable. Right. And so that was my pitch, like, hey, this happened yesterday. Would you like this article? And the editor said, I'll take it. I sent it at like 10 a.m. maybe. Editor replies and said, I'll take it, but I need it by 3 p.m. today. And I literally had like Zoom calls almost the entire time. But I had an article about here are the benefits of email marketing. Lucky me, just sitting under a rock on my desktop, because it hadn't gotten placed. And I think that's what people also forget a lot. Like if you write an article and it doesn't get placed right away, you can always use it later. And so I literally had 30 minutes of free time to resuscitate this article and spin it and put the news hook into it and get it over to them. And it worked. And so if I didn't have that article already fairly far along, there's absolutely no way I could have ever done that. And it was published the next day.
That's fantastic.
So I completely agree with that. That is, that's a big piece of the puzzle. And again, going back to writing speed, if you're interested in an outlet that talks about current events, then it doesn't work for them to jump off of something that some politician said or that some world leader said and publish it a week later. That's way too late. And I think why many entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and small business owners kind of shy away from that world is that by design, PR and media are reactive.
Yeah.
And most entrepreneurship, we celebrate being proactive. We celebrate being ahead of the curve, so the energy of, for me pitching a lot of local television, the energy of, can you drop everything and be on television tomorrow morning? Mm-hmm. I'm here in Houston, Texas. There is a show that airs at 10:30 p.m. at night. So the producer comes in at 6 p.m. and looks at the news of the day and then determines what the show's going to be. So so before this has happened twice now, I will get a call at 7 p.m. like, hey, what are you doing tonight? This happened today. Can you come in and, can we do a segment and can you comment on it?
Yeah.
And so that spirit of being willing and setting your business up to where you can drop everything and go with it. That's where you can start to drum up these opportunities. And the advantage of that, similar to what we were just talking about at the beginning of this conversation with, creating content once and having it work over and over again. The same is true for media when you use it correctly. So if you've got a TV spot or you've got, you've been in Refinery 29, all these incredible outlets, once you get that placement, you own it. You can use that forever and ever and ever to create credibility and to show off your smarts, right? So yes, procuring the placement can sometimes be a little wild. But once you have it, you own it.
Agreed. And
Yeah.
it's so worth it. Like seriously, it's always worth it. I agree. So
Yeah.
let's do a smooth transition into the piece that you wrote at the time on email marketing. See how clever I'm doing this.
Oh,
So,
well done.
so I love articles. Obviously, I think it's a must to have some written content out there in order to get found. I just think it's a non-negotiable. The other piece of it, and that's something, and I have to be very honest, I outsource this and I pay people a lot of money to do it for me, is email marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that I never write my own emails. I do sometimes, but in general, it makes me cringe. And it's the first time ever that I'm doing this. So, but I'm doing it for my two businesses. Keep in mind that I've been doing this for a few years and I've always done it myself.
Right.
But how people, these services are frankly super expensive. For me, it's worth it and I don't have to worry about money at the moment, so it's fine. I can invest. But I know that a lot of people, especially if they've just invested in a coach like me, they will have had an investment and they want to wing it and DIY it themselves pretty much. So email marketing is golden. I totally agree. You can do it in a very smart way and you should have people convert. Like, let's just be frank. If you have someone on your email list, it's your job to convert them into clients. So how does email marketing work? I feel a lot of people, they underestimate the power of email. And it is true that it's not the same as it was even 4 or 5 years ago. People are overwhelmed with inbox floating, like inbox completely overload. So how can you smartly take time once to focus on your email writing in order for it to pay off for years to come?
Yeah. My experience, having previously been in an agency, is that we would help people drum up results and drum up visibility and all of that good stuff. And perhaps there would be an influx of traffic to people's website or, things like that. And perhaps people would end up on an email list or on a newsletter list, you get new subscribers and all that stuff. But then the question was, okay, now what? Now what's going to happen in terms of those people continuing to get to know you and all of that good stuff. Email is not the sexiest platform. I 100% acknowledge that. Well, it's not sexy to many people. It is sexy.
Yes.
And here's why. Time and time again, email gets the best financial return on investment. Studies show, for larger agencies and companies, the average return is about $42 for every dollar spent on email marketing. Another important thing to think about is that if you're building your audience on other platforms, you're building on a third-party platform. We've seen this with Facebook business pages. We recently saw this with Instagram. The third-party platform is a privately owned platform. They can decide at any time to redesign or recalibrate their algorithm to show different material in a different way. So last year, up until last year, Instagram showed your connections posts in a chronological order. And then last year that changed. And it actually turned a lot of people's businesses upside down who had been relying on that chronological feed, right? Same with Facebook business pages. 10 years ago, if you posted on a Facebook business page, every one of your fans would see your post. And now it's industry standards about 3 to 5%. So if it feels like you're getting in front of no one, you're correct.
You're correct. I took all my efforts from Facebook. Literally this week we axed the social media distribution platform, which we liked because we could repurpose content on Facebook. I was like, let's axe it. I'm not going to spend another cent. It's not worth it.
Yep. Yeah. And so, and I mean, you can't fault them. As a publicly traded company, they have to work to be as profitable as possible, and how they're profitable is with ads. So it totally makes sense. Like, okay, we're just going to turn down the distribution on your page unless you're willing to pay to play.
Yeah.
With email, you have someone's private contact information. And so that barrier, that potential filter to communicate updates to your audience, you're not going to have to deal with that filter. Naysayers will talk about how emails have a low open rate. But one, people are going to still continue to see your name in their inbox over and over again. And two, many people are sleeping on what I call a welcome email sequence, which is that in the first week or 2 weeks of someone being on your subscriber list, they're really into what you're doing, and those open rates are sky high. So I looked right before this interview. My open rates on the first 3 automated emails I have that go out, 72%, 55%, 52%.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not like a special unicorn. That's pretty much industry standard for open rates in the first week. Right.
Yeah.
And so you want to communicate to these people who have signed up, who have given you their private contact information. You want to communicate to them a little bit more about you, who you are and what you do, so that it is cemented in their brain. And they're not going to have an experience where 6 months from now, they get an email from you and they're like, who is this?
Yes.
Right. Like, at least, they may not buy now. That's fine.
That's fine.
But they know who you are, and they're engaged, and they see you as an expert. They see you as a leader. And for many of them, they'll end up becoming the majority of your clients, the majority of people who buy from you. It's because they open and they read. They're ready to read and consume your information and expertise. So I think that for many people, even if you're drumming up the traffic, you're running ads, you're getting PR, you're doing all of these other marketing tactics to get more people onto your list. But a piece of the puzzle that many people have missing is they do not have this welcome email sequence, or it's also called a nurture sequence. Sometimes it's called an autoresponder sequence, where, again, just like we've talked about before, you write that content once, you plug it in, and then it is educating people over and over again about who you are and what you do.
Agreed. And I'm guilty of this. Like, I had Sleep Like a Boss for 2 years with just one welcome email, and then they were straight into my email list, into my newsletter list, because I was too lazy to do it, and I was just like cringing, hence me outsourcing and paying someone to do it for me. But I do agree that I teach it actually in the 3rd masterclass that I have. I teach how to do it. It's just that I personally hate doing it, so I'm just not always my best own student.
Yep. And for me, actually, the that mini course of mine that you purchased, so mine builds up. I have a 5 email sequence, and it builds up. In the 5th email, I pitch that mini course, and 95+% of people don't buy, but a few do, right? Because they're like, okay, but people now know what it is. And then what I actually do, pro tip, it's in the footer of my email for every newsletter after, just as a casual, like, hey, this thing that I told you about, like, you can actually buy it at any time. And I do get transactions from that. So that's nice. You've already done the pitch. You've gotten it out of the way. The people who are interested are interested. The people who are not. And we're just going about our business.
I agree. And the thing is, people expect to be sold on emails, so if they open, they are fully aware that they might be pitched, which is very, very different than social media, where they might be sold and they're like, oh, fine. But It's just very different when they get emails. Everyone, because we are so over bombarded with e-commerce, even if we get newsletters like this, we are expecting it. So you go in there with a different mindset. Either you immediately delete, I'm not in a mood today. But if you do open and read, it also means that those people are ready to actually maybe do a transaction that day, which is really, really powerful. So I really, really like it. Now, cleverly enough, for people like me who are like, ugh, I know it, but I'm too lazy, or I just don't like it, writing content for this email funnel, you have an amazing tool that you're actually giving away as a gift, and you, as my listeners, get access to this. So tell us a little bit what it is.
Yeah. So if you are someone who is interested in creating this welcome email sequence, which I strongly encourage that you do, because it's going to pull its weight for you over and over again, right? Then I recommend you create a 5 email sequence to start. And I've got a tool to help you with that. It's free PDF. It's called the Welcome Email Workbook. It is a fillable PDF, which I love. So I go through the psychology of what each of the emails can consist of. It's particularly good for coaches and personal brands, because it kind of talks about, all right, you probably want to introduce a personal story here in this email, and then you want to do these other things for that email. So I introduce the methodology of these 5 emails. And then I actually give you prompts for each email where all you have to do is go in and click and write about yourself. And then you're going to have the roadmap for each of these emails. You take the emails, you plug them into your email provider, you set it up. Every single email provider has very clear instructions in their, in their education dashboard on how to set up a nurture sequence or a welcome email sequence, because it's a very popular automation. The tricky thing is what to write about. And so with this resource, it's no thinking required. I'm actually going to tell you what to write about, and it's your favorite subject. It's all about yourself. So you're going to love it. So that resource is going to be available at the URL. It's my website, which is my name, nickwolny.com/WEW. And that stands for Welcome Email Workbook. So you can check out that resource. It is free. I strongly encourage that you prioritize this content, because once you've set it up, you set it up once, and then it pulls its weight for you over and over, and you never have to mess with it again.
Exactly. And then you can go into PR, and when people flock to your website because you're so amazing and can be found everywhere, your email list will do the rest for you, like that sequence. So I think this is genius. I think it is fantastic. It's something I've been looking for a long time. So now obviously that I spend all my bucks, you coming with this, thank you. But I'm still going to try it out and see. So we have the link in the show notes. And what if, we've been talking about your courses, and you have, so many different programs coming up as well. So talk us a little bit about what's in store right now and where people can find you.
Yeah. So I have a couple of things coming up. One is, we talked a little bit about this mini course that you had scooped up. That is called the Prolific Writer Playbook. If you know that you want a system to write faster, write more articles, kind of swipe my system for how I pump out articles, and potentially pitch articles to different outlets, different international websites, things like that, then that resource is available. All of this is on my website. I've got a products page so that anyone who wants to shop around can do that. I have a program coming up that I'm really excited about called the Online Writing Success System, which is a little bit more robust. It's going to address all of the different writing that you're going to experience as an online business owner. So writing for, regular email newsletters, writing for social media, how to write social media copy without it taking 45 minutes, to write a single Instagram post, things like that. And I think this is important, knowing what content to prioritize in what order, right? I think that's, so that you're not wondering do I need to get on TikTok now? No.
I know, no.
Right? That's actually going to give you the right steps in the right order. And then a couple of times a year, we're actually in the middle of it right now, but a couple of times a year, I do a program called Fast Content Formula, which is all about speed. It's all about making a bunch of cool stuff for your business. The next time that will launch will be in August 2020. And that program is so much fun because it's live, and I personally love it because I'm doing the program with you. So we're all in the trenches together, and I'm doing my homework, so I post in my Facebook group, the draft that I don't really want to post, it's all that good stuff. So it's it is a really fun time. If you like live programs, it's an 8-week program, so it's a nice medium-sized bite. Then you can be on the lookout for that. That's coming out again in August.
Brilliant. I really feel there's something for everyone. And obviously you can get on a wait list, I imagine, for the one that's launching in August. And just check out Nick's whole social media. I love what you post. It's always super educational. Your articles, I just checked out your articles now, and I actually already shared it. You just shared it a minute ago on Facebook.
Yes.
And I already shared it to a friend of mine who's the CEO of a big company, and is just getting really frustrated right now with people not being able to communicate. And I was like, give them this. My friend Nick wrote about it in Entrepreneur. So Nick is a great person to follow, and he's adorable and lovely and fun, and even posts drag queen videos sometimes. It's just fantastic. I love
Gotta keep it light. Yeah,
it's the most entertaining feed. One of my favorite feeds to stalk lovingly, So go and check him out. And Nick, thank you so much. I honestly am so honored and humbled by all the wisdom you shared today. It's incredibly generous. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you guys next week, in 2 weeks, actually. And check Nick out on his website. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. And you can email me directly at christinemeansbusiness.com or check me out on my social media platforms where my handle is by Christine Hansen. See you very soon.